300 meters, pierces a man's chest surrounded by families. The perfect shot from a professional sniper. December 2020, Perth. Nick Martin, Rebels president, falls into his wife's arms while children watch horrified. This isn't just another gang hit. It's the symbol of something greater, the beginning of the end. For 5 decades, the Rebels built an empire on Australian asphalt. 70 chapters, over 2,000 members. The largest motorcycle club in the country. But in less than a decade, that empire began to crumble. Not from bullets, from something more lethal. Technology. Encrypted apps that were FBI traps. Laws that turned friendship into crime. Digital surveillance that penetrated every message, every transaction, every move. Welcome to the story of how the Australian state dismantled the Rebels Motorcycle Club piece by piece. An unprecedented digital extinction operation. On December 12, 2020, the quiet of Perth Motorplex shattered with a bang that would resonate throughout the Australian underworld. Thousands of spectators were enjoying the roar of engines at drag races when a sniper's bullet pierced the chest of Nick Martin, 51, president of the Western Australia chapter of the Rebels Motorcycle Club. The bullet traveled 335 meters diagonally across the track, impacting with surgical precision. Martin screamed his last words, "Babe, I've been shot," before collapsing in his wife Amanda's arms. He died right there, while paramedics attempted resuscitation in front of families who had come for a quiet night out. The shooter remained hidden, invisible among the shadows of the sports complex. He had spent between 10 and 15 minutes watching Martin through the telescopic sight before pulling the trigger. The bullet also wounded Ricky Chapman, boyfriend of Martin's stepdaughter, and grazed a 5-year-old boy sitting on his parents' lap just meters away. The audacity of the attack shocked even organized crime experts. This wasn't a street confrontation between rival gangs. There was no motorcycle chase or bar shootout. It was a public execution, cold and calculated, carried out with military skill in a place full of innocent civilians. Western Australia Police immediately launched Task Force Ravello, mobilizing 100 officers to investigate the murder. The government offered a $1 million reward for information leading to the killer's capture. Initial hypotheses pointed to a war between motorcycle clubs, specifically with the Mongols, with whom the rebels had violent confrontations in recent years. But something didn't fit. As criminologist Mark Laux, a specialist in motorcycle organizations, noted, the assassination lacked typical characteristics of a club conflict. It was too sophisticated, too risky, too professional. Martin's case, however, was merely one piece in a much larger puzzle. What authorities didn't immediately reveal was that this assassination represented the culmination of a decade-long systematic war against the rebels and other motorcycle clubs in Australia. A war fought not just with weapons and police raids, but with something far more devastating: draconian legislation, mass digital surveillance, and covert operations penetrating to the heart of criminal organizations. The question floating in the air wasn't just who killed Nick Martin, but what forces had converged to bring Australia's largest motorcycle club to the brink of extinction. The rebels weren't just any criminals. For 50 years, they had built an empire extending across the continent with international ramifications in multiple countries. At their peak, they controlled 70 chapters in Australia alone, with over 2,000 active members. They were the country's largest outlaw motorcycle club, surpassing even the legendary Hells Angels. Their structure was sophisticated, their loyalty ironclad, and their ability to operate in the shadows had defied authorities for decades. But now, that empire was crumbling. Martin's assassination was just the most visible symptom of a disease that had infected the entire organization. The state's total penetration of their operations, communications, and ultimately, their very existence. To understand the rebels' fall, we must go back to 1969, when a group of motorcyclists met at a pub in Indooroopilly, Brisbane. Founded by Clint Jacks with the initial name Confederates, they would soon become the Rebels. The first chapters were established in Dubbo, Rockhampton, Sydney, and Canberra, expanding rapidly along the East Coast. Their insignia was distinctive, a Confederate flag with skull and the 1% patch. Their motto, Rebels Forever, Forever Rebels. All members had to own big twin Harley-Davidsons, making them the world's largest club with this specification. The structure was meticulous. President, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and sergeant-at-arms in each chapter. Prospects went through probation as prospects before receiving full colors. The brotherhood and code of silence before authorities made police infiltration extremely difficult. The rebels' rise coincided with the outlaw club boom in Australia during the 70s and 80s. The country became fertile ground. Motorcycle culture, vast distances, extensive coastal borders, and strategic position in drug trafficking routes from Asia. The rebels, along with bandidos, comancheros, and Hells Angels, progressively became involved in criminal activities beyond motorcycles. In 1972, Alessio Emanuel Vella, known as the Maltese Falcon, joined the Dubbo chapter. Born in Malta, emigrated in 1967, he was a professional boxer and Maltese light heavyweight champion in 1978. After an accident that left him compensation of $225,000, he invested in motorcycle importing and built a real estate empire. He used his wealth to finance the rebels' expansion. Vella rose quickly, founded the Sydney chapter, and became national president in 1973, a position he would hold for 4 decades. Under his leadership, the rebels experienced exponential growth. In 1985, he bought a 2.7-hectare property in Leppington for $198,000, which became headquarters and generated $40,000 per event. As they grew in power, they attracted more police attention. In 1990, marijuana was found at Vella's house, receiving a light sentence of part-time imprisonment. In 2000, raids on NS Stamalos, Queensland and Western Australia headquarters, seized drugs, weapons, and a crocodile. Several arrests followed. Authorities systematically documented drug trafficking, money laundering, assaults, kidnappings, extortion, weapons, threats to officers, and witness intimidation. In 2001, the rebels were named targets of Operation Avatar, a specialized police force formed that year and made permanent in 2002, aimed at dismantling 1% clubs. This established a precedent for coordinated national police operations. In 2009, everything changed. On March 23rd, Anthony Zervas, a Hells Angel, was brutally murdered in a massive fight with Comancheros at Sydney Airport. The confrontation captured on cameras showed dozens of men beating each other with poles while travelers fled. Zervas died from massive head trauma. The brutality of the public attack provoked immediate response. NSTAMR Premier Nathan Rees introduced the Criminal Organizations Control Bill 2009 days later, taking effect on April 3rd. These laws represented fundamental change, not just pursuing individual crimes, but attacking the organization's very existence. They allowed declaring clubs as criminal organizations. Members could be prosecuted simply for associating without committing any crime. Courts issued control orders prohibiting gathering in groups of 3 or more, entering licensed premises, or communicating electronically. Penalties up to 5 years in prison. Strikeforce Raptor was simultaneously launched in Nesawar, a specialized unit with one objective: dismantle outlaw clubs. The approach was aggressive and high-profile, consequence-based policing. Each member's action brought intense police focus on the entire club, forcing internal self-regulation. They used every tool: surprise raids, targeted patrols, firearms prohibitions, anti-consorting laws, collaboration with tax office, Austrac, Crime Commission, closing headquarters for minor violations, fines for minimal infractions, constant police presence. The strategy was suffocating, but laws and specialized police units were only part of the strategy. The real blow would come from something the rebels and other clubs would never see coming: technology. For decades, motorcycle clubs had maintained their edge over authorities through secrecy and unwavering loyalty. Meetings were held in person, orders transmitted face-to-face, documentation kept to a minimum. Infiltrating these organizations was extremely difficult, but all that was about to change with the arrival of encrypted digital communication. In the early 2010s, Australian outlaw motorcycle clubs faced unprecedented pressure. Anti-consorting laws expanded across the country, with Queensland introducing some of the most draconian in 2013 under the Vicious Lawless Association Disestablishment Act. This law imposed mandatory additional sentences of 15 to 25 years for people deemed part of violent criminal associations. Victoria, Western Australia, and other states followed with their own versions of anti-bikie legislation. The rebels responded by adapting. When laws prohibited displaying club colors in public, members stopped wearing their patch jackets. When anti-consorting orders prohibited gathering in groups, they developed more sophisticated communication systems. And when authorities intensified physical surveillance, clubs increasingly turned to encrypted messaging apps to coordinate operations. This seemed the perfect solution. Instant communication, apparently impossible to intercept, allowing members to coordinate criminal activities without detection risk. But in 2018, the FBI and Australian Federal Police had begun one of the most audacious covert operations in organized crime history. They created an encrypted communications app called AN0EM, designed specifically for criminals. The app looked legitimate in every aspect. It operated on modified phones without normal calling or web browsing capability, used multiple encryption layers, and promised total anonymity. What users didn't know was that the FBI secretly controlled the servers and could read every message in real time. AN0EM distribution was ingeniously simple. The app was marketed through a 4-tier distributor network, similar to multi-level marketing. Wholesalers were mid to high-level criminals, some with exclusive distribution rights in certain countries and regions. Agents had distribution rights for particular territories. Criminals trusted the app because other criminals recommended it. Word of mouth in the criminal underworld worked perfectly for authorities. One key influencer who promoted AN0EM was Hakan Ayik, an Australian fugitive linked to a $230 million heroin importation syndicate. Living in Turkey for over a decade, Ayik encouraged his colleagues to use the app. Unaware he was giving police direct access to the criminal underworld. The rebels, along with Comancheros, Mongols, Bandidos, and other clubs, enthusiastically adopted the technology. Finally, they had a way to communicate that seemed completely secure. For 3 years, from 2018 to 2021, authorities watched and collected evidence. In Australia, there were 1,659 active AN0EM devices, exchanging a total of 19.37 million messages. Criminals openly discussed drug imports, contract killings, money laundering, and other serious crimes, believing their conversations were completely private. Messages revealed plans to import tons of cocaine, murder contracts, legal advice on which lawyers to use, and intimate details of club structures and rivalries. Meanwhile, the rebels faced additional pressures from multiple fronts. In 2009, when the Rock Machine Motorcycle Club established a chapter in Perth's suburb of Myrie, it triggered violent conflict. Rock Machine had arrived in Australia in 2008, and the defection of some rebels members to this new club provoked territorial war. Violence escalated rapidly. Arson, assaults, and in 2011, an assassination attempt against Rebels Western Australia President Nick Martin, who was shot in the elbow outside his Perth home, but survived with minor surgery. The response was brutal. On February 25, 2011, police raided the Rock Machine's Myrie chapter headquarters and confiscated large quantities of high-powered explosives. According to authorities, there were enough detonators and industrial-strength power gel to demolish a large building, with some explosives hidden in a roof cavity. Police claimed the quantity of explosives had potential to cause extreme loss of life. Authorities accused Rock Machine Canada, notorious for using high-powered explosives, of being involved in providing the explosives. For the rebels, the Rock Machine conflict was just one of several battlefronts. They also maintained violent rivalries with bandidos, lone wolf, nomads, and increasingly with the Mongols, a club that had aggressively expanded its Australian presence since 2013. Public clashes became more frequent. Bar fights, drive-by shootings, street intimidation. Each incident brought more police attention, more raids, more arrests. But the most devastating blow to the rebels didn't come from rival clubs, but from the Australian government itself. In June 2014, Alex Vela, the national president who had led the club for over 4 decades, traveled to Malta to visit family. 3 days after arrival on June 9th, the Department of Immigration and Border Protection applied to cancel his visa. Then Immigration Minister Scott Morrison approved the cancellation on June 12th, citing character grounds based on Vela's association with a group suspected of criminal conduct. The decision was devastating. Despite having lived in Australia for 47 years, Vela had never obtained Australian citizenship, though his wife Heather, 4 children and 9 grandchildren were all citizens. Vela appealed the decision, but in March 2015 lost his legal battle in federal court. He appealed again to the High Court of Australia, which in October 2015 rejected his application for special leave to appeal. Legally, it was the end of the road. The Maltese Falcon was permanently exiled from Australia, separated from 24 close family members. Court documents revealed the magnitude of intelligence authorities had accumulated on Vela and the rebels. Minister Morrison's decision was based on detailed intelligence provided by an Australian Crime Commission-led task force called ATERO, focused on motorcycle club crime. ATERO investigators claimed that under Vela's leadership, the rebels had expanded to become Australia's largest club, and that during his tenure, the club had been involved in drug trafficking, money laundering, serious assaults, kidnappings, extortion, firearms offenses, threats to law enforcement officers, and witness intimidation. Most controversial about Vela's visa cancellation was that much of the evidence used against him was kept classified as protected information, meaning neither Vela nor his lawyers could see or refute specific charges. During court hearings, Justice Jeffrey Flick commented that it seemed absurd that the government could keep evidence secret based simply on intelligence services advice like ASIO. Despite these concerns, courts confirmed the immigration minister's right to keep government information secret because it was protected information. Vela's exile created a leadership vacuum in the rebels. His nephew, Damien Vela, assumed the national president role, but lacked the experience, connections, and respect Alex had accumulated over decades. Police sources indicated that Vela's stranding in Malta had significantly disrupted the rebels and their operations. There was no one to rise up and assume the leadership role. and internal tensions began emerging as different factions competed for power. By 2020, the rebels were still formally Australia's largest motorcycle club, but cracks in their structure were evident. Police pressure was relentless. The Raptor Squad had expanded operations, establishing permanent teams in Hunter Valley and Illawarra region besides their Sydney base. Between 2009 and 2020, Raptor had made over 7,000 arrests and laid nearly 20,000 charges against motorcycle club members and associates. They had seized over 2,000 firearms and $15 million in cash. Anti-consorting laws had become so restrictive that club members faced arrests simply for being together in public places. Insignia prohibition orders meant displaying club colors, even in tattoos, could result in criminal charges. Firearms prohibition orders were widely applied, and police could search club members' properties anytime without warrant under these orders. Life as a motorcycle club member had become increasingly difficult, but they hadn't seen anything yet. The most devastating blow was about to fall. On June 8, 2021, Australia woke to news of the largest police operation in the country's history. Operation Ironside, as it was called, launched with over 4,000 Australian law enforcement officers and members executing hundreds of search warrants across the country. The operation was the result of 3 years of secret surveillance through the AN0M app. Images dominating the news that day showed simultaneous dawn raids, doors smashed, tattooed men handcuffed in underwear, mountains of cash, automatic weapons, and brick after brick of seized cocaine and methamphetamine. The numbers were staggering. In the first arrest waves, 303 people were detained in Australia, with 99 being motorcycle club members or associates. The Comancheros were hardest hit, with 76 arrests, 3/4 of alleged criminals captured through AN0M intercepts. 9 were allegedly linked to rebels, 8 to Lone Wolf, and a handful linked to Mongols, Finks, and Bandidos. But these numbers only counted initial arrests. The operation would continue for years. By June 2024, 392 alleged offenders had been charged with 2,355 offenses, including illicit drug trafficking, money laundering, and dealing in proceeds of crime. Over 6.6 tons of illicit drugs and $55.6 million in illicit cash had been seized, plus 149 weapons and firearms. This amount of seized illicit drugs equated to approximately 16% of total illicit drugs seized in Australia during 2020-2021. 63 offenders had been sentenced to a combined total of 307 years behind bars. Messages intercepted through AN0M revealed the internal workings of motorcycle clubs with unprecedented detail. Criminals discussed plans to import multiple tons of cocaine, half of Australia's annual consumption in some cases. They arranged contract killings with some messages detailing payments of hundreds of thousands of dollars for hits. They shared legal advice on which lawyers they were using and what legal counsel they had received if charged with drug trafficking. Communications also revealed that some high-profile Australian syndicates had moved offshore, creating an expatriate criminal community. But while Operation Ironside devastated motorcycle clubs across Australia, the rebels faced an even more immediate crisis in Perth. The investigation into Nick Martin's murder had progressed rapidly. In March 2021, Task Force Ravello arrested a 35-year-old man, a former soldier with sniper training, and charged him with murder. In September that year, the man pleaded guilty to Martin's murder. Details revealed during court hearings painted a chilling picture of meticulous planning. The shooter had been contacted in early 2020 through encrypted messaging service wire by David James Pye, a former Rebels member who had switched to Comancheros. Pye allegedly offered $150,000 for Martin's assassination. The soldier accepted the job and spent several weeks researching his target. Internet searches, social media analysis, physical surveillance of Martin's house, even flying a drone purchased from JB Hi-Fi over the property to assess security. He visited Perth Motorplex on several occasions to study the venue layout, observe Martin's usual seating position, and plot the vantage point where he would carry out the murder. The sniper recommended the racetrack as the ideal location, and Pye allegedly gave him the job. On December 12, 2020, the assassin took position and waited. For 10 to 15 minutes, he watched Martin through his rifle scope while Martin sat next to his wife. At 8:33 p.m., the shooter fired a single bullet from his concealed position, approximately 335 meters diagonally across the motorplex track. The bullet struck Martin in the left side of his chest. Martin screamed, "I've been shot," before collapsing. He died in Amanda's arms as she attempted CPR. His last words were, "Babe, I've been shot." The former soldier was sentenced to 20 years imprisonment with a minimum of 18 years before parole eligibility. His identity remains protected by court order for security reasons. But the investigation didn't end there. David James Pye, the alleged mastermind of the assassination, was arrested and charged with 6 counts, including murder. Pye's trial began in October 2025, 3 years after the murder. Prosecutors alleged that Pye believed Martin had put a contract on him, so he wanted to kill him first. Court documents revealed that Pye had allegedly also hired the shooter to kill another Comancheros leader, Ray Silly, for $600,000, though that murder was never carried out because the shooter was arrested. Martin's assassination effectively beheaded the rebels' Western Australia leadership. Carl Labrook, who had been Martin's sergeant-at-arms for over a decade, assumed management of club finances after his president's death. But Labrook soon found himself in conflict with National President Damien Vella and the East Coast hierarchy. The friction point was money. Labrook alleged in court that Martin had demanded members pay their monthly dues in cash, and that there was unrest when money was suspected to have disappeared or gone into renovations at Martin's big house. LeBrook described Martin's leadership as an untransparent dictatorship. But what most demoralized LeBrook and other Western Australia members was the perception that the East Coast wasn't supporting members who had been jailed during the recent war with the Mongols. This war had been particularly brutal. The Mongols had aggressively expanded their Australian presence since 2013, when they absorbed a local Australian motorcycle club, giving them chapters throughout the country. Their arrival had further unsettled the already violent and fractious Australian motorcycle club world, and the rebels found themselves defending territory they had controlled for decades. Clashes between rebels and Mongols escalated throughout 2022 and 2023. There were shootings, assaults, even a riot at a Mandurah bar, where over a dozen members from both clubs were charged with participating in a massive brawl in the tavern's front bar. Some alleged participants wielded pool cues, billiard balls, and bar stools in the melee. Several rebels members were imprisoned as a result of these clashes, and they felt national leadership had abandoned them. In May 2024, the breaking point arrived. Carl LeBrook resigned from the club he'd been with for 25 years after his integrity was questioned by National President Damien Vella, according to police sources. It wasn't just him. In what experts described as one of the largest mass resignations in Australian underworld history, 36 rebels members handed in their patches amid a dispute between the club's Sydney bosses and Western Australia chapters. Unusually, in a rebuke to Sydney, the dozens of men who followed LeBrook out retained their Harley-Davidson motorcycles, something normally forfeited when leaving a club. It was believed there were now as few as a dozen committed, fee-paying rebels members in Western Australia, most belonging to the once powerful Southwest chapter. The West Coast Mutiny was a headache for Damien Vella, who had spent 2022 dealing with internal dissent in the eastern states. The sudden death of Gino Vella, Alex Vella's younger brother, in NS Stana Wars early that year, had been followed by the defection to Comanchero of Jesse, Gino's son. That move triggered fears of war between the two clubs. By 2024, the rebels were in total crisis. The club that had once been Australia's largest was crumbling from within. Defections continued. Senior members left for rival clubs, especially Comancheros, now seen as the rising organization. Police raids continued unabated. The Raptor Squad and its state equivalents maintained relentless pressure. Anti-consorting laws meant remaining members could barely meet without facing criminal charges. And with Operation Ironside prosecution still ongoing, dozens of rebels members faced decades in prison. Gino Vella's funeral in January 2022 had been one of the largest in Australia in years for a motorcycle club member. Hundreds of rebels arrived on their Harley-Davidsons wearing club colors to farewell the senior member and younger brother of Exile President Alex Vella. Members came from chapters across Australia, including Brisbane, Adelaide, Darwin, and Melbourne, as well as from overseas. Alex Vella, trapped in Malta, couldn't attend his brother's funeral, a painful reminder of his permanent exile. 200 police officers monitored the event, with a police sniper watching from a helicopter as patch gang members said their final farewells. But by 2024, such massive displays of club strength had become increasingly rare. The combination of legal pressure, technological surveillance, internal wars, and defections had fragmented the rebels. The club still formally existed, with chapters operating in several states, but its power was severely diminished. The days of 70 chapters and 2,000 members were gone. The rebels were being overtaken by comancheros in terms of membership and influence. The Mongols continued expanding aggressively, and each month brought new news of arrests, seizures, and prosecutions. The fall of the Rebels Motorcycle Club represents something more than the decline of a particular criminal organization. It's a case study in how modern states have learned to dismantle sophisticated criminal networks through a combination of draconian legislation, advanced surveillance technology, and relentless police pressure. The Australian strategy against outlaw motorcycle clubs has become a model studied by law enforcement agencies worldwide. The anti-consorting and anti-association laws implemented in Australia during the 2010s were controversial from the start. Critics argued they violated fundamental rights of association and free speech guaranteed in a democracy. The Australian Human Rights Council and civil liberties organizations pointed out that these laws allowed the state to criminalize membership in organizations without proving any specific crime. The mere act of associating with other club members, even for completely legal activities, could result in criminal charges. Motorcycle clubs argued the laws were unfair and misdirected. They maintained they weren't inherently criminal organizations, but clubs of motorcycle enthusiasts who had some members who committed crimes. Just as any large organization has some members who violate law. The Rebels' Constitution declared it was a non-profit organization promoting Harley-Davidson motorcycle use and stipulated that drugs were frowned upon within the club and that heroin and smoking methamphetamine were completely taboo. But Australian courts generally upheld anti-bikie laws, despite constitutional objections. In several high-profile cases, the High Court of Australia ruled that laws didn't violate separation of powers or other fundamental constitutional principles. The government argued that the need to protect public safety outweighed concerns about individual civil liberties, especially given evidence of widespread organized crime linked to motorcycle clubs. The effectiveness of anti-bikie laws has been debated. A 2015 study on Queensland laws found that crime statistics didn't suggest outlaw motorcycle club members were committing a large number or proportion of serious crimes in Queensland. Only a 4% reduction in motorcycle club membership had been achieved in 2 years, not the 17% claimed by police. There had been no successful convictions under criminal association provisions in 2 years. The former Queensland Attorney General, who introduced the laws, Admitted legislation wasn't necessarily about convictions, but about deterrence. However, what's undeniable is that the combination of these laws with technological operations like Ironside has had devastating impact on outlaw motorcycle clubs. Operation Ironside in particular represented a turning point. For the first time, authorities could observe criminal organizations' internal communications in real time for years. Intelligence gathered not only led to immediate arrests, but provided insights into organizational structures, drug supply routes, money laundering methods, and relationships between different criminal groups that will continue driving investigations for years. Operation Ironside's ethical implications have also generated debate. The operation involved the FBI and Australian Federal Police actively creating and distributing a tool used to facilitate criminal communications. Some legal experts question whether this constitutes entrapment or crossed ethical lines in law enforcement. Legal challenges continue, with several defendants challenging AN0M messages' admissibility in high court. These challenges' outcome could have far-reaching implications for digital surveillance and covert operations. For the rebels specifically, the legacy is one of lost opportunity and warning. The club had built over 50 years one of Australia's largest and most sophisticated criminal organizations. They had international presence, substantial financial resources, ironclad member loyalty, and decades of experience navigating police pressure. But in less than a decade, that empire fragmented. Alex Vela's deportation removed experienced leadership. Nick Martin's assassination beheaded the most powerful chapter. Operation Ironside exposed their operations. Anti-consorting laws made functioning as an organization almost impossible. And internal rivalries and wars with other clubs bled remaining members. The rebels' current state in 2025 is a shadow of their former glory. Though the club technically still exists with chapters in several states, membership has plummeted. Western Australia chapters have been particularly devastated, reduced from dozens of active members to fewer than a dozen committed. Comancheros have overtaken rebels as the dominant club in many areas. Mongols continue expanding aggressively, and new criminal groups, including Italian Mafia organizations and Middle Eastern drug syndicates, have moved to fill voids left by weakened motorcycle clubs. Alex Vela's fate encapsulates the Australian government's strategy. Rather than pursuing specific criminal charges against the rebels' leader, which would have required proving crimes beyond reasonable doubt in court, they simply excluded him from the country using immigration powers based on secret evidence he never had chance to refute. Vela remains in Malta, separated from his family, living in exile after 47 years in Australia. His nephew Damien Vela, who assumed the national president role, lacks the experience and connections to hold the club together and has faced his own legal troubles, including conviction for associating with club members in Adelaide. Raptor Squad raids continue in 2025. Just weeks ago, officers conducted 6 simultaneous raids in Nora, North Nora, Sanctuary Point, and Willamia to arrest Hells Angels members and associates, demonstrating that pressure on motorcycle clubs hasn't diminished. In the last 2 years, Raptor Squad South has seized over $15 million in illicit drugs, mainly cocaine, methamphetamine, MDMA, and cannabis, as well as $2.1 million in cash, 130 firearms and 40 weapons, including flick knives and tasers. Operation Ironside prosecutions continue moving through courts, with more convictions expected in coming years. Operation Ironside Phase 2 targets up to 160 additional targets across Australia, focusing on outlaw motorcycle club members, Italian organized crime, illicit drug distributors, and trusted insiders. Those who use their knowledge or workplace connections to facilitate crime. Arrests under Operation Ironside will likely continue for years. Perhaps the most significant lesson from the rebels' fall is the obsolescence of traditional organized crime models facing modern surveillance technology. For decades, outlaw motorcycle clubs maintained their edge through secrecy, loyalty, and face-to-face operations that were difficult for authorities to penetrate. But in the digital era, every text message, every phone call, every financial transaction leaves a footprint. The encrypted apps criminals believed protected them became their downfall. The devices they thought were secure were actually FBI-administered surveillance tools. The Australian state's message to criminal organizations is clear. There's no place to hide, no truly private communication, no way to operate without eventually being detected. The combination of laws criminalizing association, technology exposing communications, and specialized police forces applying relentless pressure has created an environment where traditional criminal organizations struggle to survive. The rebels learned this lesson the hard way. Today, the remnants of the once powerful Rebels Motorcycle Club operate in shadows, a fractured empire of what they were. Harley-Davidsons still roar on Australian roads, but the men riding them no longer proudly display club colors. Headquarters have been closed or sold. Leaders are in exile, in prison, or have defected to rival clubs. The motto, "Rebels Forever, Forever Rebels," now sounds like an echo from an era that has ended. The rebels' fall represents more than a motorcycle club's end. It's a harbinger of organized crime's future in the digital age. A warning that no organization, no matter how powerful or established, can resist the convergence of political will, legislative power, and advanced surveillance technology. From street power to digital extinction, thus ended the rebels' reign. Not with a bang, but with the silence of encrypted messages that were never truly private, and the echo of motorcycles that can no longer gather without facing the full weight of the law.